The NFL is a league of legends. Tom Brady, Jerry Rice, LaDainian Tomlinson, Randy Moss. Household names, icons, generational talents. But for every all-time great, there's someone on the other end of the spectrum. Today, we're not talking about greatness. We're talking about infamy. We're answering one of the most brutally honest questions. Who is the worst NFL player of all time? And I don't mean a guy who made a bad play or fizzed out quietly. I mean the single worst player to ever step foot on the NFL field, with expectations and opportunity, and completely fell apart. Let's get into that. To fairly answer this question, we need to define the criteria. This isn't about undrafted rookies who never played. Making an NFL roster at all, even for a single snap, is a massive achievement, higher than most of us are going to be able to do in our lives. But our goal here is to find players who had real opportunity, real investment, and still produced historically awful results. That means guys who were drafted highly, are signed to be starters, guys who saw regular playing time, and still hurt their team far more than they helped. We're looking for the intersection of opportunity, expectation, and failure. Did they play enough games for a fair sample size? Were they supposed to be good? And did they produce at a level that not only failed to meet expectations, but maybe even sabotage the team?
Last year, so Bobby Bethard fortunate to have that choice to get a Ryan Leaf. Touchdowns 33. Of course, he was the guy that led that team into the Rose Bowl. He really carried that football team on his shoulders throughout the season. You see the ability of
Ryan Leaf was the original Golden Boy bust, taken right behind Peyton Manning in 1998, which I'm sure everyone knows how Peyton Manning's career went. Multiple Supertime winner, MVP. But at the time, there was a real debate at the time of which quarterback will be better. Leaf had the arm, the athleticism, and the swagger, but none of the emotional control or maturity that needed to be an NFL quarterback. The Chargers took the bait, and what followed was one of the most chaotic careers in NFL history. In his rookie season, Leaf completed fewer than half his passes, threw 2 touchdowns to 15 interceptions. I thought that was a typo at the time I read that, and had one of the most embarrassing starts of any NFL quarterback. He once completed 1 of 15 passes in a game, not a typo yet again, and beyond the play, the locker room was a disaster. He infamously screamed at a reporter post-game, clashed with his teammates, and showed little accountability for his mistakes. By the numbers, he was flat out awful. His 50 career pass rating is one of the lowest ever for a player with more than 20 starts in the NFL. His 36 interceptions to just 14 touchdowns is historically bad. And yet, he played in multiple seasons, he's 30 games, he scored touchdowns, and unlike others we'll mention in this video, he at least had a career. As catastrophic as Ryan Leaf's career was, he still doesn't take the crown.
Tony Mandarich is the draftee. This guy, once in a lifetime.
He's a great player, Bob. When you watch him, he just dominates play after play. Great physical ability, but he utilizes those skills on every down. And that's a rare.
Tony Mandarich was a walking Greek statue. 6'6", 330 pounds, running a sub 4.7 40-yard dash in college. He was marketed as the most physically dominant lineman of all time, and he had all the tools to succeed, you'd imagine. The Packers drafted him 2nd overall in 1989, ahead of legends like Barry Sanders, Deion Sanders, and Derek Thomas. The hype could not have been higher, but Mandarich's career in Green Bay was nothing but a total disaster. He struggled with technique, balance, and strength at the pro level. He was constantly overpowered, flagged for penalties, and never earned the trust of his coaches. Mandarich also had a massive ego problem, refusing to participate in charity or team events, and was often labeled uncoachable. Later, he admitted to steroid use in college, which explained the sudden drop-off in strength and explosiveness. But here's the catch. Mandarich actually came back after a 5-year absence and started 30 games for the Colts. He rebuilt his body naturally and became a serviceable, if unspectacular, guard. So yes, Mandarich is a historic bust, but he's not at all the worst player. He had a second act, he recovered some value, he played nearly 90 games in the NFL. That alone puts him above the bottom tier.
With the first pick in the 2007 NFL Draft, the Oakland Raiders select quarterback JaMarcus Russell, LSU.
Let's talk about one of the most infamous busts of the 21st century, JaMarcus Russell. Coming out of LSU, Russell had everything on paper yet again. He was 6'6", 260 pounds, with a rocket arm and a dominant Sugar Bowl performance where he racked up 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. His physical gifts had scouts drooling. He could reportedly throw 70 yards flat-footed, but the red flags were there. His work ethic was a question mark. He was known to be out of shape in college, and those concerns didn't go away when he was drafted 1st overall by the Oakland Raiders. Russell held out for a massive contract, $61 million with $32 million guaranteed, which delayed his development. When he finally hit the field, it was clear he wasn't ready. He struggled with basic reads, often looked completely lost under pressure, and was consistently one of the least accurate passes in the league. According to former coaches, Russell's dedication was non-existent. They famously gave him blank film tapes, and he returned claiming he'd watch blitz packages on them. That sums it up, pretty much is what the coach said. Statistically, he was a disaster. In 2009, he completed under 49% of his passes. In the modern passing era, his 65.2 career passer rating is among the worst for first overall picks since the merger. But here's the thing. As historically bad as Russell was, he still started 25 games, threw 18 touchdowns, and won a few games. There were moments, rare ones, where he looked the part. He's an all-time bust, but not the absolute worst player to ever step foot on an NFL field.
The Buffalo Bills select Aaron Maben, defensive end, Penn State.
Aaron Maben was a flash-in-the-pan pass rusher out of Penn State, with elite speed off the edge. The Bills drafted him 11th overall to be their franchise sack artist, and he didn't deliver a single sack in 2 full seasons with the team. That's not at all an exaggeration. 0 sacks in 27 games for Buffalo. For a first-round edge, that's almost unheard of. Maben wasn't just underperforming, he was invisible entirely. He consistently lost battles at the line of scrimmage, failed to set the edge, and looked overwhelmed at the pro level. Eventually, Buffalo had to give up. He was released before the end of his rookie deal. But then, there was a flicker of hope for him. The Jets, an AFC East rival, picked him up in 2011, and in a limited role, he recorded 6 sacks and 4 forced fumbles. A solid season at last. Unfortunately, he reverted to form the next year, failing to record a sack like he did all the time in Buffalo. He was out of the league by age 24. Maben was a high-profile pick who offered virtually no return, but his brief Jets success means he's not quite the worst ever. And now, the one player who stands above, or I guess below, all the rest. No touchdowns, no success, no redemption arc, just complete and total collapse. The worst player in NFL history is Demetrius Underwood. Underwood was a freak athlete, like many other people on this list. 6'6", 280 pounds, and fast enough to chase down a mobile quarterback. Scouts were high on his ceiling coming out of Michigan State, and Vikings used their first-round pick in 1999 to get him. But things unraveled immediately. He walked out of training camp on the first day, the very first day of his career, citing religious conflict and personal stress. The Vikings released him before he even played a single snap. A first-round pick released before he played a single snap. Let that sink in. The Dolphins then picked him up, but he again disappeared, this time after a suicide attempt. Later, the Cowboys took a chance, and Underwood finally played 11 games. His final stat line, 1 sack, 6 tackles. That's it. For a first-round defensive lineman, no impact, no disruption, no future. Of course, off the field, he was later diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and his life spiraled into further tragedy outside of his career, including arrest and mental health struggles. Let's be clear, this is not to mock or vilify Underwood. His story is sad, it's heartbreaking, but based purely on football performance and expectations, he is clearly the most clear case of total failure we've ever seen at the pro level. A first-round pick who didn't play for the team that drafted him, barely touched the field elsewhere, and contributed next to nothing. That's the definition of worst. There have been dozens of busts in NFL history, guys who've never lived up to expectations, but Demetrius Underwood, he didn't just fall short, he never ever even got started. And in a league built on competition, preparation, and performance, there's simply no greater on-field failure than when a first-round pick never plays and never produces. Do you agree? Or do you think someone else deserves the crown? Let me know in the comments down below. I want to hear everyone's takes. And if you enjoyed this kind of football deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on those notifications. I'll be back bringing content all NFL season this year in 2025. This is Origin CA, and I'm out.